Silent roll call.
We have a quorum present. And may I ask each of you that has the code of conduct in front of you, if you can just sign it, that's for this year. If you haven't already done so,
You
that
were
would be
supposed to
wonderful.
wait until announcements for that.
Thank you.
Number 3 on the agenda. Can I have you do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the January 12th Development Review Board minutes.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so order. Second item on the agenda is discussion of possible action of a request for a development plan for a single-family residence in the Mountainside Zoning District overlaid. Stacy.
Chairman Burns, members of the board, thank you. This evening we will be reviewing case number 2501 MS off of Horizon Drive, which is a subdivided piece of property. It's not a known subdivision in Carefree. The applicant is Ms. Heather Berry. She's the architect for the project, and the owners are Mr. and Mrs. Neal and Gail Bavona. Now, if it looks like we've seen this property before, we've seen one next to it is west of the property we looked at last time. This property is around the same size, a little bit larger, dealing with some of the same issues that the property to the west did, ridge line and some drainage ways. Now, looking at it a little bit more closely, which is interesting when you see a slope analysis like this, is that what it tells you is that basically all of the property is undulating topography, and it varies with steep slopes and drainage channels. And so the red are the steep slopes. You can kind of see how the drainage channels are created. The blue is sort of the level area. To the lower, to the southeast is a very large wash that does kind of clip through that quarter of the property. But as you can see that this has then led to this lot being considered a mountainside lot. We look at our development standards. The zoning for this property is rural 190. Looking at lot coverage and lot disturbance, the project does comply with each of those categories. 2.1% for lot coverage, which again is anything under a solid roof, and 12%, which is the disturbance envelope, anything that has been developed on the property. Oftentimes we'll exclude the driveway when the material allows us to do so. The setbacks are 60 feet front and rear and 30 on the side, which in this case, the project does comply with our zoning requirements. So when we talk about our heights, cumulative height, 40 feet, as you know, is allowed, is basically the height from the structure at the lowest natural grade to the highest roof line of the building. In this case, it's interesting is that with all that topography change, the cumulative height is 26.5 feet. The building itself is 18.5 feet, so it complies with our maximum size. And because it is sitting on a ridge line, there are height restrictions, and we'll talk about those in a moment. When we look at our grading and drainage standards, the town development standards have been met. The development has been reviewed and conditionally approved by the town engineer. The cut and fill ratio, which, as you know, there has to be more cut than fill underneath the building pad, has been met as well. In this case, and as you may recall from the neighboring property, is that the water is off of Rising Sun Drive. So that makes it complicated to tie into the home in terms of providing its potable water source. And so as we'll talk about in a little bit as well, is that there will be a revegetation requirement associated with this project. It also would require an on-site septic system for wastewater. So looking at cumulative height, and what's interesting about this is that because the building sits on a ridgeline, you would think that typically the lowest point under a structure is sort of at the furthest location down from the slope. But in this case, because the topography kind of curls around, the lowest point is actually kind of on the northern side of the property at 2445 elevation. So that's where a retaining wall or a structure hits the lowest grade at that point. The highest point of the roof line is 2471.5. These are topography elevations. And so that's where you get the 26.5 feet for cumulative height. Now, in terms of our ridge lines, we do allow in the mountainside ordinance to develop on ridge lines so long as the structure itself is not taller than 12 feet above the highest point of that ridge line. So in this case, the measurement is 2460, so the building cannot be taller than elevation 2472, and as you can see, it complies. And as I discussed before, the utility corridor does require enhanced revegetation because they are taking the line. Typically, we like to see those, as you know, underneath our driveways or in already disturbed areas, so that landscape plan does comply. They'll be reusing a lot of the salvage plants and adding new native landscape materials. So in this instance, we do have a flyover video. Just give me a moment to take a look at so you can see what the development will look like. And I think I'm going to cancel out of that. So there we go. A little background music too. So it kind of gives you a feel for how the development sits on the property on the lot. Can you all see it on your screens? I apologize. We've been having some problems with our screens. That helps some of the audience members. Touch it. What I do like is you can see how the terrace walls that we come across quite a lot, how the house sits low in the landscape.
Stacy, what is the name of that kind of open vertical fence that doesn't have a horizontal?
They call that sticks in the desert, so they place them within, in compliance with the poolberry requirements, so it's got kind of a more of a see-through natural feel in the landscape.
Yeah, there's one near my house. I'm just curious what the name of it is. Does it have a particular name?
It's called sticks in the desert.
Sticks in the desert.
I asked the same question.
All right. So I only have a couple more things to say. The citizen participation requirements have been met. There were 2 property owners that reached out, and I think their questions were answered by the applicant. And as you can see, the recommendation is to approve. There's conditions for approval that are attached to the report if you have any questions on those. But I do have the applicant here, and she's willing to make a presentation and maybe provide some details that I did not.
Stacy,
Yep.
before we do that, I noticed that one of the applicants, the letter or whatever went out that returned. What's the city's process when that happens? In other words, when the first mailing gets returned because of an improper address, et cetera, is there any kind of a follow-up procedure there?
Chairman Burns and Commissioner Nimsky, or Board Member Nimsky, no, there's not. The requirement is that, and we've discussed this before, is that Maricopa County is where we receive and the information as to people's property and mailing addresses. And so we just don't have, and this is a list that we generate for every project. And if you don't keep your mailing address accurate or current, then you won't receive mailings, not just from us, but from other kind of entities, government entities. So we always try to impress upon people to make sure your mailing address is current. We just don't have kind of the time and the manpower to track down everybody who hasn't, because we wouldn't really know how to reach out to them either. We wouldn't have phone numbers or email addresses and things like that. So always try to impress upon the public to have that information correct. You're welcome.
My name is Heather Berry. I'm the architect for the project. First of all, thank you for your time and attention and including us on your agenda today. I'd like to introduce Neil Bavona, the owner. His wife, unfortunately, has jury duty. She couldn't come. She's stuck in New York. And Lisa Tate, owner of Full Circle Custom Homes. She's the builder.
Sunday morning was 4 degrees minus 11 wind chill.
I bet she's thrilled you're here.
I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And I also want to thank Stacy, EJ, and Samantha for their attention and accommodation with us. They gave us a couple-week extension to the pre-app, which really helped us get a complete package. And we have a wonderful team of consultants and engineers that did a very complete submittal. So there were just a couple comments. We really appreciate their review and thoroughness of their report. And look forward to getting the building permit submitted.
Peter, I don't have any comments. I think it's a real clean, clear-cut case, so I would vote yes.
I agree.
Oh, thank
Can I
you.
just-
Thank you.
It is. Can I ask a question?
Of course.
There are like four or five houses on the other side of the street on Horizon,
On the north side?
on the north side,
Mhm.
yes. Where do they get their water? Are they on a well, or is it pulled up from Carefree Water Company as well? It's on
You
a
know,
well?
there's,
On the ridge, I believe they were all on well.
The gentleman behind you is obviously a resident. Ah, I see, okay.
yeah, there's no water in Horizon Drive. So,
And just out of interest, my colleague here asked, is there an HOA up there?
no.
No? Okay. Okay, any other questions?
I just have one.
Sure.
You call it the stick builds,
Sticks in the desert.
sticks in the desert.
Yes.
You know, I've seen those before.
Yeah.
They're not the most attractive looking.
Well, what we like about them is that if you're standing away from them, you can kind of weave them through the desert landscaping, and they are a little less visually, they blend a little more and kind of disappear. If you're standing next to any pool barrier, you're going to see it. It tends to disappear in desert landscaping. That was our intent. And then it applies with pool barrier requirements. And it sort of follows the natural topography a little bit better because it's a custom application, not the panels. You know, those prefab pool fence, view fence, which can kind of stair step down hills and so on. This is hand placed and can kind of undulate a little bit more. And it's obviously a personal preference with how fences look.
Personally, I think they're very attractive.
We have one for and one again.
Hey, you know, can't make everybody happy.
I understand.
You don't have to have them.
You know that better than I. This is not a public comment kind of a thing, is it?
I mean, it is a public meeting, so we
Okay.
could take comments from the
I
public. Mhm.
just noticed that there's a bunch of neighbors or to-be neighbors here, and I wonder if they have anything they want to say, or they're just here to watch the spectacle.
It would have been nice if we had received anything in the mail. This is the first we've signed anything.
Well, I would urge you
And
to,
the lot of shares, 300 for boundary with these souls. They're south of me, I know of them, and nobody said anything. I've not been approached by any.
you're within the 500 feet
I'm
radius?
zero, right up against the parallel.
Okay. Well, I would definitely check your address with the county assessor, because what happens oftentimes when they record the title, they record the title and the address in your address at the time you purchased the property and not the mailing address. I'm just telling you, I've seen many occasions where tax bills are not going to the owners because they still have their California address when they signed the paperwork. Tax bill goes to California, doesn't get delivered, the taxes don't get paid, they go on the delinquent roll and they come up for auction. So every so often, check with the county assessor's office on your parcel at your address and make sure that the address is correct. And it's unfortunate that that happens, but it does. Yes, ma'am.
Anyways, we've been paying our taxes and have been no problem getting mail to that address.
On the property taxes?
We always get communication, nobody's possessed our house. And we own they're on a 10-acre lot, which is quite unusual, and ours is also a 10-acre lot. And I do have one question.
Sure.
Could you please come up to the podium? Would that be all
We're being
right?
recorded. You're going to be a movie star here in a minute if you'd come up.
I don't make a very good movie star. Anyways, I think you could.
We're
But for the public record, we need you to stand where the camera's focused on.
Will you take the microphone? Thank you.
I was going to bring it to you.
Anyways, I just have a question. Had they considered they're on a ridge and they're building on a ridge, of using that ridge for their driveway and going out on Rising Sundance, I think. No, Rising Sun. Rising Sun, yes. And also, it would be, they're going in, if we have, I understand it, I don't know for sure, but on a little rather steep slope and on a back road, but that ridge does connect over very easy. And they'll say we'd have to do is maybe put their garage door on the other side of the garage, and they would still be entering from a nice side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry you didn't get your package. We mailed out a whole submittal to all the property owner addresses we got from the town, and I checked them with the county, and was it 500 feet or, so I apologize you didn't receive that. We're coming in from the north because the driveways, even though this is a hillside property with a lot of change of topography, the driveway is coming in pretty flat from the street. And
And I'm not sure where it comes in.
it's on their property where Horizon Drive kind of turns north. It's pretty close to there.
That's pretty steep.
So
Let me
It's
see if I
on
can find a
pa-
site
It's
plan.
on page 5 of your report.
Yeah, I think I have also their development plans. That might be a little quicker.
yeah, the grading plan probably shows it, because the driveway is our personal private driveway for my client is not a steep driveway. The driveway itself to the home on their lot is fairly flat. That's why we designed it that way. And then to give an open view of Black Mountain and the rest of their property from their back patio.
Does that help?
It's kind of hard to read, but
Maybe there's another,
yeah, it kind of follows the topography on the side of the ridge. It's kind of coming alongside their driveway. So it really, the Bavona's driveway won't be really seen. You're not going to see it very much. It's not climbing a hill or anything. It just follows the side of the ridge on their lot.
Stacy,
make it a little smaller.
And also the hill.
Peter, may I make?
We need to have public,
Excuse me,
public
can we go
comments.
through the chair, please?
yeah.
As disorganized as we may seem from time to time, there is a structure to
Okay.
this meeting.
Sure.
If you want to have a conversation with her, you can do it,
Okay.
but,
I didn't know how to address her question.
okay.
I was just trying to explain.
Any
Peter,
other?
yes, Stacy, I find the picture that you have up here really easy to understand in terms of where the slopes are. The
Okay.
one with the colors, I did not find that to be
Okay.
intelligible.
make it a little
This
bit
one
more
is
visible.
very intelligible, and it's very clear that the house is on the levelest part of the available property. So my request would be, in the future, if you have this kind of drawing, this kind of schematic, I prefer this to the colored one.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to thank you for doing the video. I find those fascinating and very useful. Thank you.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. The
Absolutely.
property, the neighboring property had it, and we really liked it, so it helps to understand.
Can I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. The next item on the agenda is announcements. There is a code of conduct piece of paper in front of, or there was in front of everybody. It would be appreciated if you would sign your copy and turn it in to the clerk. Any other announcements?
I do have one, please. Chairman Burns, I think if, I'm not sure if you were at the council meeting last week, but we are soliciting for interested members to join our zoning ordinance advisory group. We're looking for a letter of interest and a resume, and those submittals are due February 25th. So hopefully we're looking for some people that have some sort of background in either development or law or things that might help us work through some of the challenges that we have on our zoning ordinance.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
One more thing for members of the panel here. We are going to have a workshop on Thursday, the 12th, and this morning a document was emailed to you. It's also available on the agenda page for the town site. It is rather a dense document. It's 64 pages or 52 pages or something like that. 67, well, it's in that range. I just encourage you all to spend a little bit of time early on, because it's really tough to cram before the meeting. And we only have a limited amount of time, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot. I mean, we not only have this verbose panel, we have our friends on council going to be there. So you're going to have to fight for an opportunity to say something. That's my announcement. Anything else?
I just want to clarify that workshop. That workshop, like our meetings, is at 4 o'clock, correct?
Yes, it is. And it's going to be here, and we're going to have a square table, so it's not our crack Economic Development Advisory Board staff is paying close attention to this discussion and is ready to respond if we're wrong. It'll be at 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
Here,
Here.
square table.
Yep, we'll do the, kind of like the horseshoe that we did.
Okay? That's the end of the announcements. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it.
Nice to meet you again. I'm sorry you didn't get this. I wanted to show you on here where your house is gonna go. So here's Horizon Drive. Okay, their house is gonna go right there. On the low side of the ridge. So we're digging down quite a bit. We're digging down quite a bit to get.
Yes, we're watching, there's one construction going on. When I'm on presentation, I'm watching over the corner.
Yeah, this is the builder. I'll introduce you to your new neighborhood, Heather. Sorry you didn't get this. What is your name? Yours was the one returned. No, we I don't know, they give me an address. Gertrude gave me an address, and
It's interesting.
it was returned to me. I don't know why. I'm regularly on. Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Yeah.
Excuse me,
We'll get out of here.
can we have some order? I urge you to take it to the shade out here.
Right, congratulations.
The Economic Development Advisory Board, thank you. The Economic Development Advisory Board meeting will come to order. We don't have a roll call, so I give it to our crack staff, Mr. Propak.
Is that crack or crack?
I said crack.
Correct. I appreciate it. And I'll try to keep this brief.
Good.
Yeah. Operative word try. No. No, I appreciate it. And I hope you guys appreciate it. I put this in the format of the Peter Burns format for PowerPoint design. So it'll just be black on white. And so today what I want to do is just go through the strategic initiative update for the town hall redevelopment and kind of, you know, we've already done some stuff where we've engaged the public. This is kind of the next step in the fact-finding information of what we're trying to accomplish. What I'm doing today is really kind of giving you some further information as we start to bite off the chunks of the types of things that we need to do to evaluate this process. And I'm not looking for, we can get into a more detailed conversation, but we're also, as Commissioner Burns said, we're going to be having a conversation on Thursday, which is going to be talking about the town center in general. And Commissioner Diot, you asked about the difference between village, I heard you saying village center and town center. So when they went through and did the original village center master plan, that's what they called it. And so they came to this conclusion that they were going to use the term village because they really wanted to create the concept of this being a village. And that's why you see the words somewhat used interchangeably. So the documents still call it a village center. It was a master plan, then the village center redevelopment plan. But then again, everything else we have relates to the area as town center. So we've always kind of ruled with the town center, even though the documentation kind of, I just wanted to answer your question because I heard you say it, and I know you guys are going to have some questions as it comes up as that report, in relationship to that report. So I just want to kind of walk through real quick here that this is actually part of the town council strategic plan. It's a strategic initiative. And in this particular case, what we were asked to do was evaluate public-private partnership options for selling and relocating town hall. And so really that's where we're in. This is a fact-finding due diligence project at this point. We're not coming to any decisions on what we're doing necessarily. This is what this is about. And whoops. And the site that we're talking about, obviously, is the town hall site. And that includes, when we looked at this, was not only the town hall, but we're also interested in potentially adding on additional property that we own, which is Sunshine Way, which is located in Orange. And this gives you the basic details of the property along Cape Creek Road and Carefree Drive and Sunshine Way. And obviously there's the sundial, so everybody can see, you know, kind of in relationship what we're talking about here. And as we look at the process, when this was approved by the town council in the strategic plan, we came back to the Economic Development Advisory Board. We had some initial conversations about next steps, and then in those next steps, we were looking at having town hall discussions, or I say town hall, you know, including the community and stakeholders. And so we did those meetings. We did one in August. We did another one in November. We came back to the EDAB group, and we talked about kind of some of the findings that we had there. I don't want to rehash all those, but you can kind of see really where those findings kind of landed. It was really, number one was restaurant anchor, looking at retail, potential mixed use. There were some concerns over the costs that had been brought up, and that we really hadn't gone into costs at the time, and that we need to maintain some historical tie. And so what I've done is I've spent the time looking at the next steps of the information, and that is looking at the costs and looking at the types of revenue. And based on the information and input that we have received to date, what that looks like. And so I actually had a contractor look at what it would cost to potentially build something here on this site. And when we had a contractor look at it and give a general estimate, you know, a couple years ago, that was right around $2 to $2.5 million. That has now jumped to somewhere right around between $4 and $5 million. And that's just due to the cost of materials going up, cost of labor going up, and in general, cost of construction across the board has gotten extremely expensive relative to where we were 2 to 3 years ago. So, and then we've also looked at what it would cost to buy something, which is, interestingly, you know, a lot more reasonable. I mean, just by example, the office buildings that you see on Elbow Bend here across the other side of the parking lot sold for $2 million. So to buy something for us that would be more in line of what our size would be considerably less. So we're probably looking at, you know, in that $950,000 range if we're looking at 4,000 to 5,000 square feet to maybe 1.5 million. And it may even be less than this, but as things are fluid, it may be more. We ask what kind of buildings are available that are in this range. That's a fluid part of the conversation as well. The building across the street right here has been sitting for 4 months vacant. So is that an opportunity? I don't know. It might be a little small, but those things come and those things go, but we'll have to evaluate that. Additionally, when you look at what the appraised value was, when we really originally started this project, we had an appraisal done, and that came in for both the town hall property and for the Sunshine Way, right around an appraised value of $875,000. So when we start looking at the math of all of this, you start looking at what the costs are going to be, and you're going to start looking at what we could potentially get. And again, these are actual values that we're talking about for something that was sold, an actual estimate that we received to build something versus an appraised value, which might not necessarily reflect what a market might pay. So a market might pay more or less than that appraised value, but it's just to give us an idea where in the ballpark we are when we start doing this analysis. And then what I did was I kind of ran through and I started looking at ways for us to start looking at what the revenue potentials are and kind of how a development would lay out based on various different scenarios. And one of the scenarios we looked at was restaurant only, and what would that maximum square footage be. Now, one thing you see is the developed percentage. And so when we look at town center, we have a lot of properties that are developed to 90%. And if you look at the commercial zoning requirements, we don't have a lot of setback requirements for commercial. So I kind of talked it through with Stacy and was saying, okay, at a maximum level, when we start mixing and matching the type of use versus the number of parking spaces for that use that would be required, and then utilizing these per square foot revenue estimates, that we kind of can come up with some idea of what revenue can be generated in the type of square footage. And then if you look at the total square footage of being 10,600, that means you can probably have 2 restaurants at 5,000 square feet or mix and match in various different ways. The other thing I want to talk about is this gives you the maximum potential of what we can develop. Let's say we only wanted 1 restaurant on that site and we wanted to say, okay, well, we're trying to solve some other parking issues, right? So maybe there's an opportunity to what, you know, Commissioner Hardy said at one point, that we look at maybe parking options for this site, that we can do a restaurant that's going to generate revenue, but then we can also look at maybe utilizing that site to create additional parking to support our existing retail without having to maybe purchase or build other parking spaces elsewhere within the town center. And it's just something for us to consider as we start moving forward in this conversation. Then I looked at retail only, and you can get 20,000 square feet of retail out on that, which is double the space, but it doesn't create quite the revenue, because when we start looking at kind of how the retail per square foot and the versus restaurant, it's just not the same. And again, these per square foot.
I'm sorry, would you go back a slide? Okay, this for the restaurant at 500. Because it's only half the size of the retail site.
Correct. So this is the trade-off you get between restaurant and retail is that the parking requirements, the 1 per 100 versus the 1 per 250. So you have to have significantly more parking for the restaurant, and if you're surface parking, that eats up a lot of your area for you to build your square footage. And so that's why I wanted to show these scenarios to kind of see it's a puzzle and how this all gets put together.
If you were targeting just a restaurant, this is 90%, essentially 80%, 90% of the lot would be parking.
No, 90% of the site would be developed. So it would be developed with,
Well, but your parking is 37,000 square feet. Your whole lot was only, what, 50? Go
yeah,
back
so you'd
four-
be, yes.
Go,
And so,
go back 4 slides.
yes, yeah, so you're right.
So you're this, where does it say, right here?
Yeah.
You got 53,000, just over an acre. An acre,
Yeah.
if you do that, okay, so you're gonna put 37,000 into parking.
And so you're gonna have, yes.
If
I
you
mean,
put a
go to-
restaurant in.
And if you go to a restaurant, it generally has more parking around a smaller building.
Right.
But that building's gonna generate more revenue per square feet.
Okay, I just wanted to,
Versus retail, right, and that's why you can get almost twice the square footage on there, because you don't have quite the same parking requirements. Now, this doesn't take into account that maybe we could utilize any off-site parking. This is looking at it as it's kind of its own self-contained development. In some way, shape, or fashion, you're gonna have to find ways to park the cars. And restaurants generate more traffic. I mean, that's just the way life is. And it's, yeah, but it's also, you know, I mean, and our code requires it. And so then I kind of looked at various different scenarios, you know, mixing and matching restaurant versus, you know, retail. Within reason, you're not going to have probably a restaurant less than 2,000 square feet, unless it's just some, you know, kind of a real walk, you know, order and go kind of place. But that's the other side of it is and when we start talking about restaurants, you can have a sit down, really nice restaurant, maybe next to a bakery or a deli. You know, it doesn't have to be 2 sit down. There's a lot of things we can consider as being what we would like to accomplish. So,
That place.
Keeler's?
Keeler's.
you know,
Just to kind of get an idea.
do you know what would you
But
guess?
they have inside and outside. Yeah,
Yeah, and so
yeah, and they have the upstairs.
So when I talk about square footage, that's a good question, because when I talk about square footage, that's seating area. So that would include patio space too. And so if you add in the Keeler's patio space and all that, I would have to say it's got to be right around 5,000, 4,000 square feet.
I
Yeah.
would think, yeah.
Yeah. So you have to really account for all that. And that's the challenge we've had is that when Town Center was originally designed and built, and we looked at the parking requirements for Town Center, those parking requirements were always built around the commercial requirement. They didn't build them with restaurant requirements. And so as we started adding restaurants on, it really did put a strain on the parking to some extent. The saving grace is that the restaurants, for the most part, like a Keeler's, don't have the same hours as some of the operating retail businesses. So when they operate at night, those businesses are closed. And so when parking's all taken up, coming up to, Easy Street for Pizza Cotta and Keeler's, and now Black Mountain, which it gets pretty crowded, those aren't. But if we had everything open at once, it could put a significant strain on our parking. And so again, just looking at kind of what these revenues look like, and the reason we look at these revenues is, again, as we start evaluating this from an economics perspective of what it would cost for us to do something, and then what those revenue opportunities look like, just purely from sales tax, we would be getting money for the sale of the property, or some kind of, for value in the property. We'd be getting money in value for what this revenue stream looks like against what those costs may look like. And so if there's a delta there that, maybe what we're building or getting is more, that's kind of how we evaluate that.
Let's go back to a couple of slides where it costs to build the new town hall. 5,000 square feet, or 4,000 to 5,000 would be 4 million to 5 million. That, if my math is right, that's $1,000 a square foot.
Yeah, and that's all done and said with. Then they're looking at fully furnished TIs, all those things complete, and that was adding on to this building here. And I actually had an estimate done by a contractor, and they did a really detailed estimate on it.
Okay, but that's $1,000 a square foot.
Yep.
So flip through to where we just were on your scale there. Next one. Okay, so what you're saying is that for a restaurant square foot, you're talking about a $10 million investment?
Could be, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, and so what you got to look at is
takes your breath away, though.
yeah. So what you have to look at is the so no, because if the restaurant was 5,000 square feet, then you're looking at the same thing.
I'm looking at your bottom line on this slide. 10,000 square foot restaurant, not even counting the retail square foot, but that would be,
Probably 2 restaurants.
I understand,
Yeah.
but it's still a $10 million investment.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I'm just going by what the contractor, I have to go by what a contractor tells me.
I understand, I'm just,
Now, as you get bigger and there's economies of scale, you
Yeah.
know, so for like instance, you're looking at the northeast corner, I don't think it's gonna be $1,000 a foot, but, you know, when you get smaller scale, and again, this was doing a 2-story building attaching into here, so maybe a single-story building may not be, so there's no elevator involved, which would be required here. So that was for this building and for an office building to be located here. It could be potentially less, but I'm gonna tell you, it's more expensive right now to build than it is to buy.
okay,
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple questions.
sure.
With all of this,
Microphone,
what I,
please.
testing, it's on.
There you go.
With all of this, what are the assumptions that's driving all of this? For example, you're saying, let's hypothetically talk about a 2,000 square foot restaurant. Your estimated revenue supposedly is 151,500. That's based on what? How long is the restaurant open? What's the occupancy? What's the number of clients at any given point in time, et cetera? What are the baseline assumptions that drive all of these
Yeah,
numbers?
so the assumptions were right down below. I used just a general $500 per square foot. That's
too general.
Yeah,
I'm getting at, where are the specific assumptions that talk about, okay, if I'm projecting X revenues, that is based on what? How often it's open, the number of clientele that visit it, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these are just very general numbers that don't really tell me anything.
Yeah, so and this is what I was getting at. Right now, we're in a stage of putting together some general estimates for what this is going to be, because I don't have a restaurant in mind. We don't have an idea what that restaurant would actually look like. So it could be, you know, maybe we want a sit-down restaurant in the deli. These are the details that we're going to have to get into when we start doing further analysis. And so one of the things, you know, we're kind of cutting to the chase here, but one of the things I'm going to be recommending is that, you know, we're going to need a pathway for further evaluation at a more detailed level of kind of how we really want to approach this, because to your point, it's endless what those scenarios can look like on what we want to do for this. And so what we need to do is sit down and figure out and start evaluating these on a more detailed basis and ask those kinds of questions. Okay, if we had this kind of restaurant, what would be a table turn? You know, who are we comparing this to? And I can tell you, some are more successful at turning tables than others. Some restaurants don't turn tables very well.
But again, those are all hypotheticals. I guess my point is, you know, before a presentation like this is made, at least in my mind, the baseline assumptions have already been identified, so that when you present information like this, it's based on more than just speculation, high-level speculation. That's what this is, high-level speculation.
Well, I can't get you details when I don't have.
You,
We haven't dived in.
You can
gone
get-
into
But it
details.
seems to me that you're looking at crazy different things. You could look at a Starbucks there, and, you know, your count would be phenomenal compared to a sit-down restaurant that's open at 4 o'clock and closes at 10. Since we don't have any idea at this point what kind of a restaurant or what we're talking about, I don't think we can get into those particulars at this point in time.
But you can get hypotheticals from the Small Business Administration based on
Exactly.
square footage.
Which we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I've used here is just generalized information that I've gotten from retail developers.
Yep.
On if I was to do something and just start, we have to start somewhere of what these numbers would look like for a restaurant. This is a great low place to start, because a restaurant can go anywhere from here, and this is low. It could go all the way up to $1,000 a foot, depending on the type of restaurant and the volume and the popularity. And the question becomes what do you want, right? Do you want a high volume restaurant in town center, or do you want something that's a little more casual? I mean, there's so many things that we can look at that are going to drive this number to that point, and it could be a coffee shop instead of it could be a walk-in deli. I don't know. All I can do is so I just have to take a number, and I got to start somewhere. And this number is something that, you know, if you talk to a retail developer, say it could be any of them. They say 500, 600. I'm just giving you a place to start.
When's the last time something new was built from the ground up, restaurant, in the county, I mean, or in the town, or just out of curiosity?
It's the last time we've actually had a new building built.
Not in the town, but something that we can compare it to, a new build.
For a restaurant?
Yeah, new build restaurant
Just anywhere?
in the county.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'd have
I
to
mean,
go back
think
and
about
Well, I think Athens is the latest new restaurant, but it's not a new build.
But a
Right.
new build, it's a huge investment.
Yeah.
And I think along those lines, I'd also like some sense of the unmet demand for a restaurant. This is just anecdotal, but it seems to me that all the restaurants this year have been less full. I think some of that is the absence of the Canadians. It may be the state of the economy, but very few of the restaurants are totally full, and they used to be just a year or two ago. Since the pandemic, many times they were very full.
Have you seen a drop in the sales tax revenue?
So that's just something, I don't have the numbers yet, and we haven't evaluated what that sales tax looks like. So that's one of the things as we go through the budget
Well,
process.
I mean, in answer to your
Yeah.
question, that would be easily answered by looking at the sales tax revenue
Yep. And
this
so-
year compared to 2 years or 3 years or 1 year or whatever.
And generally, we've done that analysis, we just didn't do it
offset
this
some
year,
of that,
and so we'll work with that as we go through the budget. But honestly, we don't have, Gary's is moving along, and we're looking to bring somebody new in, so I don't have access to that information. And we'll just have to, when I can get that information, I'll try to share it as best I can.
Mr. Chairman, may I? Sir. Maybe we're talking about two different things. I think there's a consensus that this piece of property is valuable for retail, and that if we had our way and we could snap our fingers, we would want a developer to put a beautiful 2-story, elegant, outside-facing building restaurant on this property. I think there's a general consensus that would be the best. But as far as I know, nobody has stepped up to the plate and is willing to do that. So that's one issue. The other issue is I think there's a consensus that town offices ought to be moved somewhere else, and that should be done regardless of whether we're going to have a beautiful restaurant there or this stays as a parking lot. Town hall should be moved, and then we use this temporarily until the shining knight on a white horse comes and builds the big, beautiful building we want. We don't know when that's going to happen. It may never happen. It may happen soon. But nevertheless, it seems to me we ought to take the steps to move town hall. So that then is a question of, well, two things. One is, where do they go? How much does it cost? What's available? What's it going to, do we buy the building, or do we lease the building, or rent the building? That's another issue. But then if that happens, what do we do with this parcel temporarily? And it seems to me that, in my view, we have a shell of a building that could be turned into temporarily a public house, a tap house, a beautiful sort of walk in and out, blow out the entire inside of that building and just make it a big open shed kind of building. We've got the weather for it. Turn it into a public house, tap room, and expand the parking into Sunshine Way so there's more parking. And until the White Knight comes along with the perfect building, we use it in that fashion. That's my vision.
Yeah, so I'm going to go walk through all the different scenarios. There's plenty of them here, and that's what I want to do is just lay out. There's going to be a lot of options for us to consider what we want to do. And these options are going to be in general, and some of these are going to be specific. We're not going to come to the answer tonight, and that's not the idea. And we're going to have a deeper dive on town center in general on Thursday. And the question is going to be is there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things that we need to digest. There's a lot more information that we're going to need to get, a lot more details, and we're going to need at some point to really kind of come to that consensus, because to be honest, I don't think there is and a complete consensus on what we want. And I think there's a lot of people with a lot of various different ideas about what this looks like. And so I think there just needs to be a little bit more conversation. And we'll have great opportunity on Thursday. I just wanted you to have something to think about on this site as we start having that conversation, because to your point, one of the things we looked at was maybe even keeping, and some of these people have brought this up, what can we do to keep town hall on site? Because we could do that too and work with the developer to do that. And so I ran through scenarios, even looking at having a restaurant, having mixed use, retail, however that works, and keeping the office down there. Now, if you keep town hall, And this kind of comes down to the two-story concept, is that when we start talking to retailers and we start talking to restaurant users, they're not too, especially retailers, they're not terribly excited about two-story retail. And so you start really looking at keeping things on that ground floor. But if you look at, now doing mixed use with town hall office, there's no reason why you couldn't have the majority of town hall offices on a second floor and keep your retail or a restaurant on a lower floor. So these are scenarios for us to start thinking about. They all are going to have implications on the bottom line, though, right? If we stay there. And then it brings up other issues that we need to talk about. How do we, town likes to own its real estate. Do we want to continue to own? Or do we lease the ground? Do we lease space inside? Are we joint venturing with somebody? There's a lot of things that we need to think about as we start to think about how we want to package up some kind of deal that makes sense for us. And so if we do go out to, and start talking with the development community, and I'll tell you, there is interest in doing something here. And people come to me all the time about where we are in the process, and it's all kinds of different ideas. And some of them are really interesting. And I'll just give you an example. There's somebody who approached me about doing mixed-use retail with residential on top. And I know residential is one of the things that kind of was not exactly what people wanted, but with the residential component, what this person was talking about was the idea that by being able to monetize it with that, they could actually put some of the parking underground and maximize the retail on top, because residential doesn't require as much parking as the retail, so they can still keep the retail, do the residential, but the quality of the project and the architecture is far superior to anything else that you've seen in town center. So does it set the bar at an architectural level that we would like to see with some kind of tiered and I'm not saying we solve it right now, and I'm not asking you to say, yeah, that's a great idea or not. I'm just telling you there's a lot of things that are coming down as far as information that we're going to need to evaluate in this due diligence process to get to the best place for what we want to do. And then the one thing that I've also talked about or wanted to bring up was, and this is another scenario, is the idea of buying 11 Sundial Circle or acquiring Sundial Circle as the town. And that is the building that's just right here.
Would you just it's just the one building that has the drive-through? It's not the building?
No, it would be the entire building.
So what's shown in, yes, that?
So everything would be in there. So, and the reason I show the green is just to show that, so the green, you kind of get this idea that there'd be this retail connectivity up here. You can do some parking back here, but yeah. And the purple is potentially where you could just take town hall, because it's already an office building, right? So you put town hall in a portion there of a 11 Sundial Circle, you can still work with some kind of leasing company and management company to lease out the rest of the space. Town's owner, town collects the rents and the money. It's a revenue source for the town. But we have the best opportunity as a town to be able to look at this green area all collectively together to look at how we do some kind of commercial restaurant project. And now you're better maximizing, utilizing a vacant building and cleaning up some space, but you can do something that's maybe a little more meaningful. And at the same time, if you buy this building, you get this parking lot. They go hand in hand. And so we would be the manager, owner of the parking lot as well. And now what you can look at is connectivity, pedestrian-wise, coast to coast from all the way through here. So now you can really tie this parking in to one cohesive development.
So what's available is the portion of the building that's green plus the pink and the white, all those, that's all one building?
Yeah, it's all one. So one development would be all three of those buildings there.
Is there enough space in the empty bank building to relocate town hall?
There is, but that's, to me, it's not the ideal. The ideal is that you would just utilize the existing office space for office and put some kind of retail into the bank building. Well, if it's already an office building with, 8,000 to 10,000 square feet of office.
That's empty?
No, the purple part.
That's empty?
That's not the bank. The bank is in the green here.
Okay, what's in the purple?
That's just a two-story office that's right here.
Is it empty?
No.
So could you guys use space could you lease space in there and fully use that space?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at what the lease situation is over there, but I'm sure that, they're not forever. So we would have to just look at that and then see if there's opportunities. There's plenty of office space in town. So those are things we just,
Is
again,
Is this available now? Is this,
no,
no,
not yet.
not yet, but there's discussion, right?
This is with you guys. We're thinking right now, like, what's the best scenario that we would want to pursue? I'm not going to, is there an opportunity to pursue it? Sure. Is there an opportunity to look at various different things? I can't tell you if they're available because I haven't really, we just need to get some kind of direction is that, yeah, that's something that we would like to look at. And if it's something we're going to look at, then we can go start asking those questions.
So the idea would, that we would buy the entire building, we would use some of it for town hall, and we would then lease out, and we would become the lessors to retail shops for the rest of the property.
For the balance of the office that's there. And then we would be able to lease out the bank building as well. So, and here's the thing about monetizing that. So when we start looking at what our revenue stream is and what our ROIs are, our ROI is a little bit different. Not only can we look at, so if we're not going to have any ROI on our use of the building, right? But we get ROI on any sales tax that if we put it in the bank building, let's say we put a restaurant or some kind of retail in there, not only are we getting rent, but we also get the sales tax revenue from that. So that I would build that into an ROI model for us because that's just new revenue to us that we're not getting today.
So have you thought about putting together some alternative scenarios that says, okay, if you want to go in this direction, here's potentially how that would look? Because, we keep talking about this as if it's a one-off, right? We have lots of other things around us that are either vacant, may not be the proper way of using that space, might not be the best and highest use. So before you talk about opportunities, you talk about choices, before any of us can make a more definitive judgment as to what fits best, we have to look at what's around us. Is there a restaurant across the street? How's that restaurant doing, as an example? You've got Stagecoach Village, right across on the west side of Tom Darlington, who took years for those restaurants to start filling up. So I think that's the kind of information, that's what I was getting at earlier.
Yeah.
That's the kind of information that we need to collect in order for us to have a better sense of what we do with this property, whatever we do with this property impacts the surrounding properties, et cetera. That's what I call planning.
Yeah, and Commissioner Nemski, I agree with you. And one of the things that we'd always talked about as part of this project was getting together some kind of, I don't know if it's a citizen group or if it's a subcommittee of people who understand these types of projects, the kind of questions we need to do, so we can collectively start putting all that information together. And then instead of me working on something and bringing it back on a monthly basis, that we could actually sit down and go through a lot of that stuff and vet that with that group, and then we can report back. And so ask all those questions, and then I would like to consider some type of opportunity to do that with, and maybe that's something you'd want to be a participant on, or how we would want to move this forward. But there's a lot of smart people in this community that understand this stuff and know the questions to ask. And then we can start getting down to brass tacks and going from there.
Steve, do we have any history of the town purchasing real estate and then renting it out? Do we have any experience in that field?
I don't know if you would qualify the water company where we doing that and they lease from us. So that would be a scenario where we've done that. Have we done it where we're a private entity?
Did we buy that property?
Yeah, we own that.
Pardon?
The town owns that property. So we own that office building, and then we own the public works, and then the water company leases from us. So yeah, this is something that would be different, new, a little bit, out of the box but it's not to say that, if you can get it priced right, and we can find a way to do that, then you have to look at your costs, right? You'd have a cost of bringing in somebody to professionally manage it, professionally lease it. And so those are just, again, those are details that we would just need to discuss. I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to take home something that shows you various different options at this point. That, there's a lot of things to consider about how we want to move forward to best maximize the utilization of this and figure out the best and most appropriate way to deal with the town hall. I think there's, notwithstanding the details of who owns what and how what's for sale and all that other stuff, just from a purely planning perspective, so a scenario like this actually works out really well because you're not really moving things that far. You have office available, and it all fits together. So,
My initial impression is that it's a terrific idea. Putting the town staff almost next to this building makes sense. Putting them downtown makes sense. This is obviously a very valuable piece of property. It's next to the hotel. It's next to the Sundial. It's right smack in downtown. If we can increase some retail there, if the price is right, it seems to me we ought to really, really jump on it. That's my initial impression. I may change, but who knows?
so my goal would be, try to get some feedback from you guys on how you would want. I mean, obviously, we want to start diving more into some information and get some direction, and we can do a little bit more of that on Thursday night on direction for something. Now that you guys have been able to hear this, but I would like to, really by the time June, July hits, have some really good in-depth analysis on some of these, the kind of the direction that we'd like to head or at least examine.
So just one more question, I'm sorry. If it's available for sale, does it include Tract B parking as part of the purchase?
Yeah, so Track B is owned by the same owner as 11 Sundial Circle, so that would be something that we would include.
On our picture, it's the big open space with the 3 little cars.
Yep.
That's Track B.
That's this parking lot.
It's a lot of space.
It helps us with the parking issues because it's 106 parking spaces.
How many?
106 parking spaces
Wow.
is what can be parked out there. And then if owned, we can actually fix it, re-asphalt it, and then really create the pedestrian connections back to Town Hall and maybe get some better utilization. Those parking spaces are really designed for the capacity for everything that surrounds it. But evenings and weekends, nobody's here. So it's one of those things where this parking gets underutilized significantly, and if we just like our regular public parking, if it can end up in the general public parking field, and it still allows for these guys to be able to count it against their ordinance required parking, so when they sell their property, they know that they feel confident that they're always going to have parking. So there is an agreement that overlays that, and then I would keep that going because these guys rely on it. But in the future, there's always opportunity to even develop this as long as you can still handle and make sure that you're giving these folks around here the equivalent amount of parking spaces. And so, one of those things, and we're not going to decide that, but at the end of the day, it's some kind of maybe an underground parking structure. I don't know. So I just want to give you food for thought, and especially as we go into this Thursday conversation. So, when you're all done with that really short report, and just kidding. And again, the idea for that is to really take a look through that and come with some questions. And we're going to try to break it down into logical sections as it's outlined on that report. But think about it. I wanted you to think about, at least have this information as some information that you can think about as you read that report and what we're trying to accomplish here and how this would fit into the greater picture of our market position and what we're trying to accomplish and who we're trying to attract to the town.
Yeah, so that report, and I haven't read it, I skimmed it. But one of them, it basically covers 3 areas. One of them is the town hall. One of them is the town hall. And like I said, I only skimmed it. Do you recall what they recommend with regards to the town hall?
I think what they're talking about, they have a broader view of town center.
Right.
And they really, in the report, you'll find that they're, for the first time for me at least, they divided, considering town center along Easy Street, different and separate from Carefree Marketplace, where Carefree Marketplace serves local residents with daily needs. And you have the opportunity with town center, as it were, or Easy Street, to kind of appeal to outsiders and step up in terms of, kind of a luxury clientele. And they view that, and it breaks my heart for them to put this in writing because it'll raise the property values of all of those properties that they're talking about. But they're talking about a 3-point access for Easy Street being Portales, Town Mall, and Town Hall. And that those three properties have to be redeveloped in a coordinated fashion, but not necessarily linked all together. And their initial, my takeaway, and I'll wait for them to say it, my takeaway of what they're saying for Town Hall in the beginning is probably to blade it and turn it into parking to support the rest of the town development. But, you know, obviously we're getting a lot more complicated because now we're talking public-private partnerships with those two other properties, and now the whole concept is going to come up of business improvement district and how that's governed and whether everybody will sign it. See, and you can understand it when you look at the people that did the report. They're used to working with developers that have total control over a piece of dirt.
Right.
And they can specify tenants, they can specify demand, hours, they can specify architecture, and all of those things that a developer can do, we can't. And it puts us in a kind of a significant disadvantage in terms of developing. But I think that we're going to be getting some examples of how you can leverage a business improvement district and turn it into something, whether it be like the town of Cottonwood or even downtown Roosevelt Row, I think is one of the examples that they use. But you have to have the long view. It's not going to happen in 1 year or 2 years. It's going to happen in 10 years or 15 years. And you just have to start. So all of the, you know, but one of the things they're talking about is using 11 sundial circle. This wasn't entirely his idea, but to use that 11 sundial circle to move the town hall to and maybe maximize but long term, they like more residential downtown.
Yeah.
So long term, and all of this is, you have to go through the report, but they might be looking even farther down for a major parking installation at Bloody Basin.
Yeah. I mean, there were, back in early 2000, there was a developer that came in here and talked about a combination development that included retail and residential. You know, so this is not exactly a new concept, but the point is,
No.
that may still be a viable concept.
Right. So I really urge you to, I got a lot of different perspective by reading their report. I got to see a draft as they were putting it together. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to read that before we sit down.
Yeah, okay.
Because if you think this is generating questions, wait till you get, fired up on that report.
Yeah, and again, it's an analysis, and so what we're trying to do is it's not a plan. And I remember one time, one of the meetings, Commissioner Nimsky, you brought up the idea of like, when's the opportune time to reevaluate like the Village Center redevelopment plan, and the things that we have listed in there as the objectives and goals and all that other stuff. And when do we maybe modify that or change that or evaluate those things? This is the kind of information, these are the kinds of things that are going to help support us for saying, yeah, maybe we should start reconsidering or consider like making those changes to those types of documents, or how we look at those documents, or the strategic plan, right? We have the council strategic plan, but we've accomplished a lot of the things that are outlined in that plan, or we're moving to a place where they're
The current one.
yeah, the current plan. And so what do you do in the current plan to update that to say, okay, you like something like this, well, let's take this to the next step. Let's evaluate these opportunities.
The other thing that you get to take away from the report, and you'll get from the ladies, is that time is fleeting. We don't have a whole lot of time left. Otherwise, we're just going to be an old backwater on the end of Scottsdale Road. But we don't have to be Scottsdale. We don't have to be Kierland. We don't have to be Scottsdale Quarter. We want to be what we want to be. But you can't just sit around forever. So I think that hopefully this evaluation of Town Hall, getting in a little deeper than we've ever been in the past, and this overview that you're getting from the consultants, I think, and one of the big challenges they point out is leadership. Who's your champion? Who's going to go into the arena, so to speak? So, anyway, unless there's any more, it's 5:10. We're gonna be here Thursday night. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank y'all. Yeah.
Well, I think you'll,
Okay. All right, see you later.
Always helpful. Beneficial. It seems agonizingly slow, but I think we're doing
Well,
sort of.
you can analyze yourself into paralysis.
Analysis paralysis.
But the 2,000 would have been offset by.